The letter arrived on a Tuesday, tucked neatly between a gas bill and a coupon for a local pizzeria. It was from the Harmony Creek Homeowners Association, an entity I'd had minimal contact with since moving into my modest 3-bedroom house a year ago. My interactions had been limited to paying my quarterly dues and giving a polite wave to the HOA President, a woman whose name I only knew as Karen during her brisk, almost militaristic, daily walks around the neighborhood. The crisp, white envelope felt heavier than it should. My stomach did a little flip-flop. In my experience, unexpected mail from an HOA is never good news. It's never a, "Hey, we appreciate you keeping your lawn so green," or "Here's a gift card for being a great neighbor." It's always about something you've done wrong. My hands, slick with a sudden nervous sweat, tore open the seal. The words, printed in an offensively cheerful font, leaped off the page. Violation notice, intent to fine. My eyes scanned the details, my blood pressure rising with each line. The alleged transgression, my front porch. Specifically, the letter cited a violation of Article 4, Section 3 of the Harmony Creek Covenants, Conditions, Restrictions, CC, rupees. All exterior structures, including but not limited to decks, patios, and porches, must be maintained in their original approved condition. No alterations, additions, or unapproved color changes are permitted. The fine was a staggering $250, with an additional $50 penalty for every week the violation remained uncorrected. According to the letter, my porch, which they claimed had been illegally altered, was the source of this neighborhood disruption. I dropped the letter onto my kitchen counter and walked numbly to my front door, opening it to stare at the offending structure. It was a simple, covered porch, maybe 10 feet by 6. It had a clean, white-painted railing and a light gray floor. To me, it was one of the charming features that had sold me on the house. I hadn't altered a single thing. I'd power washed it in the spring and replaced a rotted step, but that was basic maintenance, not an alteration. What were they even talking about? The next morning, I saw her, Karen. She was standing on the sidewalk directly across from my house, a clipboard in hand, her eyes narrowed in a look of intense scrutiny. She wore her signature visor and a pastel-colored tracksuit that seemed at odds with her perpetually sour expression. This wasn't a casual stroll, this was an inspection. I took a deep breath and walked outside. "Good morning," I said, trying to keep my tone even. She barely glanced at me, her focus still locked on my porch. "Your porch is in violation," she stated flatly, as if commenting on the weather. "I received your letter," I said, gesturing towards my house. "I think there's been a mistake. I haven't made any alterations to the porch. It's exactly as it was when I bought the house." Karen finally turned to face me, a smirk playing on her lips. "That's what they all say. The CC rupees are very clear. That design," she pointed a perfectly manicured finger, "is not the community standard. The railings are too ornate and the color is not on the approved palette." I blinked. Ornate? They're standard wooden railings. And the color? It was like this when I moved in. I assumed it was approved. "An incorrect assumption," she sniffed. "The previous owner was also cited, but they moved before the fines could be fully enforced. The responsibility now falls to you. You have until the end of the month to bring it into compliance. We recommend a simple vertical railing and a color from the approved list, which you can find on the HOA portal." She was already turning away, her inspection complete, her verdict delivered. "But that would cost thousands of dollars," I called after her. "To tear down a perfectly good porch railing and repaint everything based on a mistake?" She paused and looked back over her shoulder, her expression one of utter indifference. "The rules are the rules. It's what keeps Harmony Creek a desirable place to live." She then continued her brisk walk, leaving me standing on my lawn, fuming. Desirable for whom? Certainly not for anyone who had to deal with her tyrannical reign. I spent the rest of the day in a state of agitated disbelief. I scoured the HOA portal, a clunky, outdated website that looked like it was designed in 1998. I found the infamous CC rupees, a dense 80-page document filled with legalese. I also found the approved color palette, which consisted of 3 shades of beige and something called grige. My light gray porch was apparently a shade too vibrant for Harmony Creek. But I wasn't going down without a fight. The letter said the porch had been altered. Karen claimed the previous owner had been cited. This was my angle. If I could prove the porch was original to the house, or at least that it had existed in its current state for a significant period without issue, her argument would crumble. My fight wasn't just about the money, it was about the principle. I refused to be bullied. My quest for evidence began in the most logical place, my own closing documents. I dug out the thick folder from my file cabinet and spent hours poring over the inspection report, the appraisal, and the property disclosures. The inspection report noted the porch's condition as good, with no mention of any HOA violations. The appraisal photos, though small and grainy, clearly showed the porch exactly as it was today. This was a good start, but I needed more. I needed something that predated my ownership. The next day, I took a different approach. I went digital. My first stop was the county's property appraiser website. I entered my address and hit a small jackpot. The site had historical data, including photos from previous tax assessments. I clicked back through the years. 2023. My photo, 2021, 2019, all showed the same porch. Then I found it, a photo from 2015. There it was, in all its ornate railed and unapproved colored glory. The porch had been this way for at least a decade. So much for the previous owner making a recent, illegal alteration. Feeling a surge of adrenaline, I dug deeper. If the porch was that old, surely it was part of the original construction. I searched for the original builder of the Harmony Creek subdivision. A few Google searches later, I had a name, Phoenix Homes. The development was built in the early 2000s. This is where things got interesting. I started searching for old real estate listings for my neighborhood. I used phrases like Harmony Creek Home for Sale 2010 or Phoenix Homes Harmony Creek floor plans. I waded through countless dead links and outdated websites until I stumbled upon an old, archived blog of a real estate agent who had specialized in the area when it was first being developed. And there it was, a post from 2004 titled, "Phoenix Homes Unveils New Models in Harmony Creek." The post featured promotional materials and, to my delight, the original model home brochures. I clicked through the scanned PDF, my heart pounding. There were 4 different floor plans: the willow, the birch, the aspen, and the maple. My house was the maple. I scrolled to the page detailing the maple. The description read, "A charming 3-bedroom, 2-bath model featuring a spacious living area and our signature welcome home front porch." And right below it was the architect's rendering. It was an artist's drawing, but there was no mistaking it. The railings had the same gentle curves. The overall structure was identical. My porch wasn't an alteration, it was a signature feature. I felt like a lawyer who had just found the smoking gun. I saved the PDF, took screenshots, and printed everything in high resolution. The county tax photos, the appraisal photos, and the crown jewel, the builder's original promotional brochure. Armed with my folder of evidence, I requested a formal hearing with the HOA board. The automated email confirmation said it was scheduled for 2 weeks later. For those 2 weeks, Karen made a point of walking past my house every single day, sometimes twice. She'd slow down, clipboard in hand, and just stare. It was a silent daily reminder of the fine that was supposedly accruing. But now, instead of feeling intimidated, I felt a grim sense of satisfaction. Her power was built on a foundation of assumptions and misinformation, and I was about to demolish it. The night of the hearing arrived. It was held in the community clubhouse, a sterile room with a long folding table at the front in rows of uncomfortable plastic chairs. At the table sat Karen as HOA President and 2 other board members, a tired-looking man named Gary and a woman who seemed more interested in her phone than the proceedings. I was the only homeowner on the agenda. Karen called the meeting to order with a rap of her gavel. "The first and only item is the violation at 125 Willow Lane," she announced, not even bothering to use my name. "The homeowner has failed to rectify an unapproved alteration to the front porch. The fine currently stands at $350. The board is here to formalize the fine and set a final deadline for compliance." She looked at me expectantly, as if I were about to beg for mercy. I stood up and walked to the front, placing my folder on the table. "Thank you, Karen," I began, my voice steady. "I'm not here to dispute the rules. I'm here to dispute the facts of this violation. You've claimed that my porch is an unapproved alteration. I have evidence that proves it is, in fact, an original builder-installed feature of the home." I opened the folder. I could feel Karen's smug confidence begin to waver. "First," I said, sliding a printout across the table, "this is the property record from the county tax assessor's office." As you can see, photographs from 2015, 2017, 2019, and 2021 all show the porch in its current state long before I purchased the property. Gary, the tired-looking board member, leaned forward, peering at the photos. Second, I continued, sliding over my appraisal photos. This is from the official appraisal conducted during my purchase of the home last year. Again, the porch is documented as is, with no mention of any HOA non-compliance. I paused, letting them absorb the information. Karen's face was hardening. But the most definitive evidence I have, I said, my voice rising with confidence, is this. I placed the crown jewel, the builder's brochure, in the center of the table. This is the original promotional material from Phoenix Homes, the builder of this entire community, from 2004. My home is the maple floor plan. I pointed to the illustration. As you can see, the architectural rendering for the maple specifically showcases what the builder called the welcome home porch. The design you are calling an ornate alteration was, in fact, a key selling point for this model. It is not an alteration. It is the original intended design. Silence. Gary picked up the brochure, his eyes wide with interest. The other board member finally looked up from her phone. Karen snatched the paper from Gary's hands, her eyes scanning it frantically. I could see the moment the realization hit her. Her carefully constructed case, built on her own interpretation of the rules and a faulty memory of how things should be, had been systematically dismantled by verifiable facts. She stared at the brochure, then at me. Her face, usually a mask of condescending authority, was now a mixture of shock and fury. She had been proven wrong, publicly and unequivocally. This doesn't mean anything, she stammered, but her voice lacked its usual conviction. The colors are still not on the approved palette. The colors that have been on the house for at least a decade, as documented by the county? I countered. A color that was present when the HOA has, for years, inspected the property and presumably issued no violations until now? The doctrine of latches might apply here, where the HOA has waived its right to enforce this rule by failing to do so for such an extended period. I didn't know if I was using the legal term perfectly, but it sounded good, and it had the desired effect. Gary was nodding slowly. He looked at Karen. She has a point, Karen, he said quietly. The brochure, that's pretty clear. We can't find someone for the original builder's design. We'd have half the neighborhood in violation for one thing or another. The other board member chimed in, yeah, this seems like a mistake. We should probably just drop it. Karen was cornered. 3 sets of eyes were on her. The air was thick with my victory. She threw the brochure down on the table as if it were contaminated. Fine, she hissed through gritted teeth. She looked at me, her eyes burning with a venomous rage that promised future unrelated grievances. The board rescinds the violation notice and the fine. This hearing is adjourned. She slammed the gavel down with a crack that echoed in the silent room. I calmly gathered my evidence, placed it back in my folder, and gave a polite nod. Thank you for your time, I said, a genuine smile finally breaking across my face. I walked out of the clubhouse and into the cool night air, feeling 10 feet tall. I had faced the neighborhood dragon and won. I had been underestimated and challenged, but I had trusted my instincts and done the work. I had fought back not with anger or insults, but with something far more powerful, cold, hard evidence. The next morning, I sat on my porch, beautiful, original, builder-designed porch with a cup of coffee. As Karen made her morning rounds, she saw me. Our eyes met for a brief moment across the lawn. I raised my mug in a silent, cheerful toast. She immediately looked away and quickened her pace, her pastel tracksuit a blur of defeated righteousness. The war might not be over, but I had won the battle, and my porch had never felt more like home.